One of the biggest misconceptions that I run across all the time as a teacher is that science is done by people in white coats with big fancy machines and crazy hairdos. Now, I will grant you that a lot of scientists do wear white coats, and yes, this dude has some pretty crazy hair, but the truth is that simple scientific investigations can be done anywhere and by anyone, because science is just a process, a way to solve problems and gather information, and learning the basics of that process can really strengthen your critical thinking skills. Hi everybody and welcome, my name is Luke and this is The Science Lens. In today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about why you should be doing experiments. For some of you, this next story will be a bit of nostalgia, and for others it'll be one of those back in my day stories that old people tell, but here it goes. Back in my day, we used to play video games on a Nintendo Entertainment System. The internet wasn't really a thing yet, so when you wanted to play a game, you had to insert a little plastic cartridge into the console like this. Now, every now and then, for no clear reason, the game would just stop working. But somehow, every kid in the world knew what to do in that situation. You take out the cartridge, you blow on the pins to get the dust off, and then you put it back and the game would start working again. It was just accepted wisdom that this is what you do when your Nintendo game stops working. But as it turns out, blowing on the cartridge never actually did anything at all, and in fact doing so could cause damage to the metal pins, making them rust. What actually happened was the act of taking the cartridge out and then reinserting it just realigned the connections between the pins of the cartridge and the console, which is why the game started working again. Now, the reason I bring this up today is it's a classic example of a commonly held misconception that could easily have been quashed with a simple experiment. And you don't need any fancy equipment to do it, just the right thinking process. So what exactly would a Nintendo experiment look like? At their most basic, experiments consist of four things. A hypothesis, which is a prediction of what you think will happen in your experiment. An independent variable, which is the variable that you're going to deliberately change. A dependent variable, which is the thing you think will be affected by the independent variable, and controlled variables, which are anything else that could affect the results of your experiment. In the case of the Nintendo games, our hypothesis would be that blowing in the cartridges makes the game work. Our independent variable would be blowing in the cartridge versus not blowing in the cartridge. And our dependent variable would be whether or not the game starts working again when we put it back in the console. For our controlled variables, we would need to make sure that we use the same game cartridge each time. This is because cartridges, even if they're the same game, can have slight differences that might affect the experiment. To manage this variable, you would just alternate between taking the game out and blowing on it, and just taking the game out and replacing it without blowing on it. We would also need to make sure we remove and replace the game cartridge in the same way, whether or not we're blowing on it. Now, when doing an experiment, the more data we can gather, the better. So it would take a lot of hours of playing Mario Brothers to see any definitive results. But knowing that blowing into our Nintendo cartridges was unnecessary would have saved a lot of them from rusting, and so would have paid off in the long run. Now, maybe at this point you're thinking, okay Luke, sure, I won't blow on my Nintendo cartridges anymore. Oh wait, I don't own a Nintendo because it's not 1989. Well, let me show you a more recent example of when this type of simple experiment could have saved people some money. Before I continue, I just have a small request that if you're enjoying the video so far, please click the like button and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like it. Okay, continuing on. Starting in 2006, a company called Power Balance started selling wristbands with holograms in them that they claimed would enhance athletic performance. According to the company's advertising, the holographic technology could increase a person's strength and flexibility by up to 500%. The claims were, of course, not based on any science, but with the help of endorsements from people like Shaquile O'Neal, the company made tens of millions of dollars over the course of a few years. It's a shame, because a really simple experiment could have shown that they didn't work and saved people a bunch of money. In this case, if we wanted to test the effectiveness of the wristbands, our hypothesis would be that the holograms they contain enhance a person's athletic performance. Our independent variable would be wearing the wristbands versus not wearing the wristbands during exercise. We have a few choices of dependent variable in this case. We could time how long it takes us to run a 100-meter sprint, or see how many push-ups we can do in one go, and so on. For the controlled variables, the most important one is the placebo effect caused when a person knows they're wearing the wristband, because knowing they're wearing the band might subconsciously make them push a little harder. To overcome this, they would need to exercise some days while wearing the hologram wristband, and then wear a wristband with the hologram removed on other days. This is so they don't feel the wristband on their skin, so they don't know if they're wearing the hologram or not. As well as this, they would need someone to put the band on for them while they were blindfolded, and then cover it with something so they can't see whether they're wearing the hologram. Now, it turned out that some people actually did do this experiment, and their results led to a bunch of fines and lawsuits against Power Balance. But this came too late for a lot of their customers, and even though the company was ordered to offer full refunds for their products, many people never would have claimed their money back. If only more people had tested their bracelets scientifically in the early days, they might never have become so popular. Now, of course, it's not always possible to do an experiment when you want to challenge accepted wisdom or check some claim about a product. But there's still value in this kind of scientific thinking, because it helps us to question what we think we know. If you ask yourself the question, why do I believe this? And the answer is because I did the experiment, you can be confident in that knowledge. But if your answer is because Shaquille O'Neal told me, maybe not so much. Well, that's it from me for today. All this Nintendo talk has made me want to play Donkey Kong. How good is Donkey Kong? But if you'd like some resources to help reinforce the concepts that I covered today, I recommend that you check out the product page of my website at thesciencelens.com. There I have a range of resources for teaching critical thinking in the science classroom, as well as a list of services that I offer. Also, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this one. And finally, I used a bunch of resources for today's video, which I've listed in the description below, and I recommend that you check those out if you'd like more information. But for now, that's it from me. Thanks for watching.